skinny jeans were not. So it had a point of difference in the fabrication that was huge and a fairly low fashion, risk to that industry. It's almost like an annuity. People just buy denim. It goes up and down, but it stays at really high levels.
So I want to let's move it upstream. We've got, if we define the EBITDA, we now have the private equity firms circling around you. So what are private equity firms looking for in fashion companies? What makes a fashion company with a couple million EBITDA an attractive target?
I think it very much becomes momentum, and it becomes, what some of the proof of concept, how it's growing, where it's growing, the strength of its brand with consumers. Is it hitting the mark with them? Does it have the right channels of distribution? And are there more channels to grow? So if it's a growing brand, we might look at, the sales per cut, by distribution channel. We might look at certain customers, like a department store. Is it growing within there, or is it starting to decline in one channel and going up in another? We'd like to see each of the channels growing. Then we'd like to hear about the plan of how you're going to grow this business going forward. And in kind of the phase 2 of the company, are you going, show us what you're going to do to get to those kind of numbers. And a lot of it goes back to looking at the past history, looking at the management team also, and them understanding what they need going forward, and looking at the plan going forward and the assumptions that they have, and ask, are they doable or not? And, how are they going to do it? What kind of organization and what kind of products, and what kind of channels of distribution they can use to grow their business.
So Elsa, you're probably the best person to talk about the global market for fashion. So what are multinational private equity firms and multinational strategic buyers looking for in this sector? And the lower, squeeze two parts. There's that lower middle market, 3 to 5 million EBITDA, and then there's 5 and 10 million. What are those things? Let me look at those.
I think everybody's always looking for international growth.
Yeah.
The U.S. market's very competitive. Everybody wants to hear, it's now become, the U.S. is a great market, but China and all these other, markets are just huge. Can we get into those markets? They want to see a global brand. Everybody talks about that global brand. Sometimes it might have to evolve into something a little bit different market by market. Other times, the beauty is if you can sell the same brand in each country in the same way, you have a real home run. But everybody's looking to become a global brand. That becomes very important in that second phase of growth. That can you grow from the United States and grow it outside the United States? And what I have found is, the Asian markets, they tend to like American brands in particular, even more than European markets. They tend to look at brands and fit and color much more like the American market than the European market does.
Thank you. Since we spend our time representing owners of companies that are in the U.S. and Italy and France, and they're all luxury or brand companies, most of our buyers are international. So we spend a lot of time talking to companies in the Middle East, in Asia, in Latin America, and there are a lot of very, very interesting things happening right now. Private equity interests, look at the Sonbonage deals. Sonbonage, which belongs to the founders and El Capital, was bought by KKR. They've done a massively excellent job in this aspirational luxury positioning in Europe. They did just enough in the U.S. to tweak the interest of a very hungry private equity group like KKR. And KKR now bought it, and their plan is very clear to roll that out, not only in the U.S., but also in Asia. Private equity is also family offices. So look at Laybux and the Ryman example. They control Coty, that now is public, but they created Laybux, which is to invest in luxury brands. The first company they bought was one we sold, which is Bally, the shoe company in Europe. But then they went on to buy Belstaff. They just bought Jimmy Choo for one of the highest multiples ever paid. Why are they doing that? Because they want to roll it out. So today, Asians are interested in European American brands. They're different. Koreans and Japanese, they want to buy US and European brands, to attack Asia, to attack China. They can't go as a Korean or as a Japanese brand as well. So they want to buy an American or a European as a Trojan horse. Then you've got the Middle East that is extremely hungry for European luxury brands. So all of this is excellent for private equity because not only is there a lot of growth today, there's a huge amount of strategic interest, global interest, and also for new kinds of buyers, high net worth individuals, family offices, and other private equities in other parts of the world. Just think about what El Capital is doing. El Capital has raised fund after fund in Europe, then they raised 2 funds in Asia, and they're just about to do a fund in the US. Why? So they can take a look at brands that they do, which is they're global. If they're not global today, they will be tomorrow, or at least in certain pockets of the world. For me, global is what has changed the most everything that anyone's doing. And the reason that even smaller companies that are high growth, earlier than ever before, are interested in selling. Not only do they want the money, but when you found something, sometimes it's not just about the money. It's about more growth and more opportunities in other markets, and you can't do everything. So it's a huge, huge change. I have to stop, right?
No, that's good. I mean, what's LVMH doing, right?
No, LVMH and Karen, I think, are 2 examples of one of the things that's happening in luxury, which is when you get to that size of luxury, you've got retails all over the world, and you're charging 10 times more than the aspiration of luxury. You have to be careful about, are you still luxury? What is luxury? How can you continue justifying those prices? That's number 1. But number 2, design, talent. You cannot necessarily incubate when you're an LVMH the kind of design talent you need for these brands that are getting to a certain size. Therefore, you buy younger brands that have design talent. You buy the brand in the UK and you take the guy who is in charge of Guede, which is the Spanish luxury goods company of LVMH. Carries a bit different, the group is much more nurturing, but it's really both about design talent and catching growth. How can you continue growing Louis Vuitton? How can you really get double-digit growth when you're the size they are and you're a luxury player? You can't start rolling it out massively or you're not luxury anymore.
All right, so the problem with the internet is everything you say is on the internet. So I have a quote that I want to ask you. So you said, promote through theatrics in your experience, not on price. Discounting as an everyday strategy is the exercise in brand destruction that will destroy the magic of this incredible industry. So do you believe in that statement for early stage companies?
Yes. Absolutely.
I knew you wouldn't. I knew you wouldn't.
No, but I've said lots of things that are idiotic, probably multiple today.
But just explain that.
I just think, and I think you're seeing it right now. You're seeing this race to the bottom with its sales earlier and earlier and earlier. It's like, you're training your customer. You're training your customer to expect to wait for a cheaper price because they know what's happening. I think it's violating your trust with your customer. I think it smacks the integrity of the brand and everything else. And particularly that comment was an overarching comment about the industry, but also in particular about flash sales. And my prediction that flash sales were not going to be successful. And I think it's right. Why? Because a lot of reasons. I think price. I think this price is what's left over when you have no ability to compete on brand. And so, if you mean something to your customer, and you give, by the way, I also think the internet is about value. I think the fundamental aspect of the internet is about value. Value does not mean cheap price. It means quality. It means exclusivity maybe for luxury. I think it's one of the problems with the luxury industry. It means, it means the connection, the relationship you have, the affinity, the affiliation. So I think you've got to be able to demonstrate that value. You should be able to get the value then that you provide. So the point there was that the internet has gone now, and I think by the way it's spread throughout retail, where it's just about price. When the beauty of this industry was built by the ability to communicate and touch your customer. And we've lost that in the stores, we've certainly lost that online, where you just see this competing on price.
It's a very interesting point. JCPenney tried to not play the price game, and that failed. One of the things I spoke about last year about new business models is that there's a in my opinion, there is a psychological, there's an emotional part of shopping that on a retail experience, we like to see a sale, right? But when I buy online, I'm willing to spend more on custom clothing. In fact, Jay Hilmer, one of the co-founders, was here last year. I bought quite a few things from them, and the quality is great. The prices are more, but the quality is great, and I'm happy to do that. So I think there's a balance. I think the problem with retail is we don't want to go into a store and say we got it 50% off or 70% off. Now, from a brand perspective, that may not be a good thing. But what about for an early, emerging growth brand where we're trying to generate, customer loyalty, trying to generate sales, trying to get something going? Because you want to invest in someone who's generating sales. You want to see.
Well, the answer that I always hear is that, we do it to activate the customer and start the relationship. Okay, great. Show them when they come back and pay full price. And nobody has ever shown me that. They show me that they just wait. They wait for the discount. So maybe the price is too high. Maybe you do need to reduce your price by 70% because that's the value that you're providing. Maybe you've got a business that's built on stupidity, which is hopefully you're going to be conning people into paying this overinflated price rather than the true price, which is 70% off the overstated price.
All right, thank you so much. I think you guys. Any questions?
Yeah, I don't think there's and I don't want to give this Zen-like answer. It is what the customer wants it to be. But the question was, how does the brand interaction, brand is a two-way conversation. How does it go? So we're talking about earlier about about social media. I think one of the biggest problems that people use with social media is that it's a checklist. Twitter, check. Facebook, check. Pinterest, check. But some of them really don't work for people. And so how do you do that? So there are ways of it's finding what works for you. If you're there's this company that I just think is so brilliant. It's actually a retailer called Dolls Kill. On the West Coast, it's this market of girls 14 to 18 who have this goth punk kind of vibe. And the Instagram is just absolutely lit up, and the conversations back and forth they have are so vibrant. And so, the good brands embrace that, and the best brands that start from that perspective embrace that and listen. So those customers, you're not a customer, you're a member of the tribe. Those are people.
Lawrence, how do you define a brand?
Brand is a relationship between you and your customer. Simple. That's what it is for me. I think the best definition of a brand that I've heard is a brand is what you think about when your eyes are closed and somebody says your company's name.
On that note, thank you so much.